have Mr. Steve Carroll, Guru Swami.
Hey,
Yes.
the man.
We have the man.
The man, the Guru Swami
Yeah.
of
In Sydney
real estate.
for 48 hours.
Yeah.
And what a spot to be. We're hovering above the world here in Sydney. Thank you so much to the Shangri-La for having us. What a spot.
Yep,
What a
awesome.
spot.
Awesome.
The
So-
Shangri-La looked after us beautifully,
Oh,
and a special
unbelievable.
word to those guys.
And I thought
They've
this was
done
all
it.
set up for me until I realised that I think we've invaded someone's wedding, but that's okay.
Yep.
That's all right. We'll be done in about 20 minutes. But for those of you that don't know, Steve, you're with the REA.
Realestate.com until Friday.
Until Friday.
Yeah,
What
so-
happens?
10 years at REA,
Yeah.
and this Friday I leave for Pastures News. So the role that I've been doing has been made redundant, but that's good because well, it's not good, but I've spent the last 3 or 4 years, as you know, talking about the need to evolve, the need to respond to change, and obviously, the whole real estate industry is changing. Real estate. All good.
It's all good.
It's all good.
Okay, so what's next in the Steve Carroll book?
Well, my priority at the moment is to have a family Christmas. We've been
Nice.
passing ships in the night for the whole 12 months, the 3 kiddies and my wife and I. So
Yeah.
priority one, we're going to Austria and Czechoslovakia.
That's
and
nice.
priority number 2 is I'm cycling with you guys across Thailand to raise.
See, he pointed to you.
Yeah, no, and to you.
No, no.
Guys,
There's, the plan is to fit out 7 orphanages with technology, build classrooms to help the kids understand, what tech's all about, to give them a chance of getting a good job. And then when we've got that out of the way, I need to find a job.
Hey.
I reckon you'd be pretty employable.
Yeah, I think so.
I think you're
so.
pretty employable.
Yeah.
But you also do Digital Live.
Well, look, Digital Live is an education program because look, the one thing we have to agree, the real estate industry is miles behind where it needs to be when it comes to technology.
Excuse me, you heard that one from Steve, not from me.
Yeah.
I'm saying it week in, week out.
Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah, so the
Okay.
industry is miles behind where it needs to be when
Yeah.
it comes to technology, digital, social media. And so the Digital Live education program that kicks off in May is a 12-week boot camp that we do in Brisbane, Sydney and Melbourne.
Yeah.
Is designed to help real estate agents get on the front foot. So that's another priority. Yeah.
Okay. So I can say, or we can say firsthand, we've actually done that Digital Live workshop.
Great.
It's phenomenal. I reckon that was sort of the starting point to us doing a lot of our social and like really focusing on our digital, don't you?
It is. And look, for people watching tonight, what I was really interested in getting out of the Guru was how it's actually going to affect your life and how it's going to change your life. Because I know we're talking about real estate, but most of these applications are what this we're talking about is not just applied to real estate. It's applied to pretty much your consumer behaviour, particularly with technology. So when I was driving in tonight, Steve, I was thinking, how do I explain? Like, first of all, I was really excited to have you live. How do I explain that to people? Because that's great for me, and I'm excited to have you to talk about your knowledge. Because one of the greatest companies that's exploded in the last 10 years has heavily invested in one guy as their spokesman out there, and that's you. So to have you with us to share your knowledge with us live with everyone tonight, I think is really interesting, because where it's actually going to go, if people that are watching, it may not even be real estate, Steve.
Yeah.
If people that are watching who's a plumber or an electrician, people can actually make that application that you're going to talk about, we're going to talk about, into their business as a vendor, like a seller, or even as a consumer of those products. So I think it's really interesting. Thank you so much.
So I took a phone call from Bernard Salt. So Bernard is one of the leading demographers in Australia.
What's a demographer?
Demographer. He talks about the population change, the population landscape of countries.
Yeah,
Someone that discusses demographics.
Exactly.
That's the stuff I'm talking about.
Exactly. So what Bernard talks about is what will Australia look like as far as a population mix in 2025, 2030, and one of the things that he talks about is the fact that we're going to see a rapid increase of millennials in the workplace. Yeah, rapid increase of millennials in the workplace.
So a millennial is a 20 to 30-year-old?
Under 32.
Got it.
Under 32.
Okay.
So now the thing is with millennials, they're what I call technology native. So they've grown up with technology. So technology is just part and parcel of their lives.
They grow up with iPads and iPhones in their hands.
Exactly.
Right?
And so as a result of that, they have huge expectations
Yeah.
on what they expect from service providers. Now, what Bernard talks about is this influx of millennials and the number of baby boomers going out of the workforce.
Yep.
So baby boomers, Mark, are people my age
Wow.
and older, so sort of 55 and older. So when you
Yeah.
think about it, whether or not you're a real estate agent, whether or not you're a plumber, your customer base is going to become more and more reliant on younger people who are technology savvy and have high expectations. So if you're not delivering those expectations, you're going to become irrelevant. End of story.
Oh, let's just say that again.
Well, I mean, if you're not delivering on what half of, so 50% of the workforce will be millennials by 2020. So in 2 or 3 months' time, which means that more millennials are going to be buying, selling, using services, going to restaurants, and so on and so forth. Their expectations are different. If you're not meeting those expectations, you will become irrelevant in the next decade.
Because
I
that's
agree.
interesting,
I
Steve.
agree.
I've always thought about how do we change people, but what you're saying is you won't even need to. They're not even going to be the massive consumers. The people that are that are going to be consuming in that period are changed. And so the baby boomers. Yeah, that's interesting.
So as of now, so 2019, 25% of the workforce are baby boomers. So over 50. By 2025, less than 10% of the workforce will be over 55. And so, look, we got Ollie here, my son, who's 20 years of age, right? So let's just think about communication for a second. If I ring him, he won't answer the phone. If I text him, he won't reply. If I send him a message...
I thought that was just our kids.
No, if I send him a message through Messenger or WhatsApp, bang.
Right.
And so if you want to communicate to the millennials, then the old traditional phone ain't going to work.
Doesn't work.
And that's what services like real estate agents and plumbers and restaurants and so on.
That's next level.
And so I actually note that even with the way that I communicate with buyers. So if I've got a listing on realestate.com.au, it's often send an email through for that inquiry. And often agents won't actually respond to those inquiries immediately, right? Because it's an email. And I still find that quite barbaric in itself. Yet I'll put a listing onto Facebook, and then there's that instant Facebook Messenger thing going on. People expect the instant response. I've actually had to set up an auto response on my Facebook account that actually says, I've seen your response and I will get back to you within the hour. That's the expectation of people.
Well, you've heard my story about Uber. So I was fortunate enough to go to Uber head office in the United States.
Tell us.
And they were telling me that they can track the behaviour of people that use Uber through the app. Makes sense. The most impatient users of Uber on the planet are Australians. And so what happens... No, true. This is what I was told. So this is what happens is a user of... an Australian is on the Uber app. They want an Uber from... where do you live? DY? DY into the city. The Uber is 9 minutes away. Right? 9 minutes in 2019 is too long to wait for an Uber. So what the Uber person was telling me is we cancel, we rebook immediately, hoping that miraculously
they can find a 3-minute Uber.
A 3-minute Uber,
right?
More than anyone else in the world.
More than anybody. Now, this is the interesting thing is, Mark, right? This is the interesting thing is, the lady from Uber says to me, "What's wrong with you Australians? Only 5 or 6 years ago, you'd wait 25 minutes for a taxi.
Correct.
And now you won't wait 9 minutes.
Yes.
So what does that mean to service providers? Well, if you want to be relevant, you've got to be quick, fast, and deliver.
So this is what I was talking about last week. Okay, so Facebook, I'm selling properties off Facebook.
We all know. The whole of Australia, the whole of the planet.
I think the world. Someone said to me the other day.
It's no secret anymore.
We're at a function.
You've made lots of friends. You make lots of enemies at the moment. Yeah.
People are like, oh, you're always on my Facebook. I said, well, if you don't like it, you can get off.
Yeah, exactly.
That's fine. I don't mind. But someone did come up to me at a function in, where were we, Melbourne, and said, do you know you're bigger than Kylie in the UK? And I said, really? And I said, yeah, apparently everyone's talking about your social media over there. Anyway, that's
Is that right?
Story, apparently.
Yeah.
Lee Woodward told me that.
Well, I mean...
Yeah,
look,
Lee Woodward was the greatest salesman in Australia.
But
it worked. I bought it.
And he doesn't even like Kylie.
Yeah,
that's why.
But
it worked.
The thing is, when you think about it, once upon a time, newspapers were the king of the jungle.
Yes.
And if you wanted to sell a house, then you had to go through a newspaper.
Right.
And then newspapers kind of dwindled away, and if you had to sell a house, you were on one of the portals, yeah? And now what we're seeing, and this is a threat to Domain, it's a threat to realestate.com.au, we're seeing more and more agents like yourself, and we're seeing more and more consumers testing out alternative methods, Facebook being one. And that's the world that we live in. Nothing stands still.
So where I was going with that a moment ago was that I believe now that people will take the convenience of buying a property off social media over having to wait to hear back from an agent and get to an open home on a Saturday.
Yeah.
I swear, I've seen it myself firsthand.
Well, you know what?
I've seen it
we had
myself firsthand.
We had the conversation this morning, which I thought was really interesting. We've looked at, we were pessimistic on the consumption of goods. We were selling them digitally. We were pessimistic. Like we were saying, like as if you're going to buy shoes on the internet, bang, it was done. As if a lady's going to buy a formal dress for $500, $800 on it, bang, it was done. And then it's like, where does it end? At what's the grandest or largest purchase one's going to make in their life? It's probably a property.
Yeah.
And then because I know car was one for me. About 8 years ago, a mate of mine had an X5 for sale. He sold it to someone in South Australia. They saw the photos. They were happy. They direct deposited the money.
Yeah.
They knew it wasn't crashed. They did one of those tests. They knew it was written off. There's now one of those tests. And I was like, hang on a sec, now there's consumption of cars. But the property consumption that you're talking about, which is the weekend viewing, that may be very quickly.
But I've had people buy property without seeing it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we're talking in the millions. Like I've actually had people buy property without seeing it. And again, it comes down to that convenience factor. Yeah. They don't necessarily need to come and walk. It's nice if they can, but again, they'll take that convenience over having to wait for people to having to wait for those open homes.
Absolutely right. But this is interesting. So we've done a lot of research at realestate.com on the behaviour and the thinking of millennials. Yeah. And one of the things that we've learned, which we've talked about, is they're bloody impatient. We've talked about that. Yeah. But this is really interesting.
But is that impatient or is that just life?
Millennials are in particular impatient to wait. Yeah. Now, but this is interesting. Millennials will give service providers an abundance of their time if the service provider's given them a good experience. So let's just think about that for a second. So you've got half of the workforce under 33 who are so impatient they won't wait 9 minutes for an Uber. Yeah. On the other flip of the coin is if they're being delivered or given a good experience by a service provider. If a service provider is giving them value for money, they will give an abundance of their time. Yeah. Yeah. So there's two things, if you're a real estate agent, you need to know about this emerging number of people that are coming into the workforce. Number one, efficiency and fast. Yep. Number two, give them a good experience, create wow moments, and they will actually give you so much of their time.
Wow.
Which goes exactly back to what you're saying, Liz, that if you're that super responsive with people, that's when you're going to get that magic coming back.
People love it. They do. They love the immediate response.
Yeah, and the barrier, I reckon, and this probably sounds really barbaric if I talk like this, but the barrier that I reckon was always seeing the property. People were limited to 5 photos. people are limited to 10 photos. What about if I gave you 55,000 photos? And that's what a video is. And I'm not just talking a video of what the agent wants you to see.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the raw video of walking through, looking goofy, showing the property not in its best light.
I agree.
And they would rather see 55,000 photos in a 3-minute clip, raw, of the agent walking through to make their decision than see a sexy 12 photos or sexy video that goes to 30 seconds
with digital furniture.
It's very interesting.
How frustrating is it for a consumer, for a buyer, to see a nice, let's say, 2-bedroom apartment on the internet, okay, and then they rock up there on a Saturday and it looks nothing like it because it's had digital furniture and it looks phenomenal, and they get there and it's an absolute crap hole.
I agree.
And that's what happens. And so you've already annoyed people because you've brought them there and the property didn't look at all like it was meant to, and that's why that authenticity works so well.
I think we live in a world where trust is at its all-time low.
Yeah.
So when you think about it, whether or not it's Facebook, possibly selling your data to third party for commercial gains, whether or not it's Apple listening to conversations when your mobile's sitting on the table, we live in a world where trust is hard to come by, and my recommendation to any real estate agent or doctor or plumber or school teacher is build up trust, because it's a real important commodity in the digital age.
That's
trust.
Cool. I love that.
Trust.
I love that. Good old-fashioned trust. I love that.
So, Steve, what are the quick, 3 hot tips you would be giving a buyer or a seller that wants to do a deal in the next this next year or so? What are the hot tips for? Because obviously, the part of your job was probably most of realestate.com's ambition. I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, but is to attract buyers and to attract prospective tenants, which is attracting sellers, attracting landlords. What's the attraction thing that, how are you a prospective purchaser or seller? What are the things that they can do to become because if you're buying a property or renting a property, and it's digital, it's different to what your experience has ever been before. So how do you have that edge as a buyer, or how do you have that edge as a seller in this digital world when everything's just changed?
So it's a good question. So how do you have it? So if you're selling your property, then what I would do is I would Google stalk a bunch of agents that you're thinking of calling in. I'd check them out online.
Digital interviews.
Digital interviews.
So let's checking them out online means you Google them.
So I'm thinking about selling my house. And I would write a list of 6 or 7 real estate agents that I'm thinking of calling in. And I would put their name into the browser, and I would just see what they look like online. I'm interested in knowing. Do they look as though they're an agent that is digitally switched on, that's going to be able to come to me and give me a state-of-the-art, cutting-edge marketing program?
Because isn't that what we're doing? If I said to you, listen, you've got to look up Mark Novak, he's a great agent, what's the first thing you're going to do? You're going to grab your phone, you're going to plug his name in and see what comes up.
Absolutely.
You are going to
do that. And you will form an opinion of whether or not he's... And so what you're looking for, so we've done some research on this at REA. I'm looking to see whether or not Mark Novak is at the cutting edge of marketing. Is he going to give me a 2020 marketing proposal, or a proposal that was great in 2014 but it's out of date? Does Mark Novak represent a brand that I can trust? Does he look as though he cares for the community? And the other thing I'll do is I'll check out Mark Novak on Google and Facebook. I'll look at his reviews. So the question was, if you're thinking about selling your house, I would definitely do that. If you're looking to buy a house, well, I mean that's interesting, because there's not a lot of choice out there at the moment. Listings are fairly limited, and there's a lot of buyers. Would that be fair?
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yeah? And so, you know, if you're a buyer, you've just got to obviously make sure you've got your finances in a good position. You've got to meet the market with urgency. You know, you can't dither. You've got to make strong decisions. I mean, that's what I do.
And again, a lot of our stock is not actually making it to the portals.
Yeah, well, I mean,
so a lot of our stock is actually floating around on our social media channels.
Yeah, and look, I think that
with the intention of getting onto the property portal.
So when you think about it, once upon a time, if you were a buyer, it was really bloody easy because all you used to do was look at the local newspaper and everything would be in the paper. We then moved into a world where everything was on a portal. We're now moving into a world where most stuff's on a portal, but some stuff's not. So what you've got to do as a buyer, you've got to obviously make sure you're following the Lisa Novaks, you're following the agents that are driving this, what we call off-market, or off-market is probably should be referred to as off-portal.
Yes, yes,
and you've got to make sure you're not missing out by checking in with the likes of yourself, Lisa.
Yeah, I agree.
And you know what? It's also one of those things that we're finding that's really interesting. You know how you're saying everything's moving really, really fast? It's moving that fast that we have the ability to let people know the second we know.
It's
so
instant
we couldn't do
media.
that before. Before we had to frame up a floor plan person, we had to frame up a photographer, we had to frame up the property. Now, property raw, that's cool.
Correct.
Now, photographer's not there, well that's cool. Haven't got a floor plan, that's cool as well. I'm just going to do something raw because it's acceptable. I'm going to put it online and it gets consumed.
Yeah.
And that's really interesting. They'll take that.
They will take the immediacy over the perfection any day.
Yeah, but we're still going to get the floor plan done, get the photography done.
Or not.
We're still going to go there, but they're clever chaps, they're clever girls that are extremely social are actually engaging with us within seconds, not weeks.
Yeah.
So I find that really interesting. And you know, it's a scary thing for us as real estate agents is, are we underselling the property? And that's probably the biggest thing that we get feedback back on, which you're probably good to answer, Lisa, because a lot of people are saying, oh my God, it didn't even go into the newspaper. Oh my God, it didn't
make it to the property portal.
Did it get the best price?
How did you test the market? So the answer is real simple. I'll give you an example. Today, number 22 Soldiers Avenue in Freshwater, we just did a deal there.
Can I frame this up because Lisa's being a bit modest? This is Lisa's, what she told me today, what did you say? It's the most exciting, the best, the most incredible sale she's ever done in her career. Happened today.
And it happened just now, actually. But I came up against some really, really big agents in the area. So Freshwater obviously is a very highly sought after area on the northern beaches.
Yep.
So I was coming up against some very, very big agents. I was fortunate that I did get that listing, and it was a super, super unique strategy to those vendors, particularly when they've been presented by these gun agents in the area with all the bells and whistles of marketing. Okay, so it was everything you could imagine, styling and, you know, huge marketing spends, maybe sort of $10,000-$15,000 marketing spends. Yeah. And then along came me with my $0 marketing strategy, social media, and said, stop everything, don't do anything to your property, let's just trial this for 2 weeks on social media. Anyway, long story short, that property has now sold. It went unconditional just this evening, about 2 hours ago. The purchasers have asked me not to disclose the price. It is a record sale. It was sold in 6 days. It was sold off Facebook, and it was sold for $0 marketing to those vendors. If you want digital evidence, it's online. It's on my Facebook account. It will be on Novak Facebook. Those vendors couldn't be happier. They wanted to do an interview. They're over the moon. Times have changed. The buyers found it on Facebook.
It's quick.
Yeah, that's it.
We're pretty high-tech people, and you use some language that I know that's going to be very prominent in the next couple of months and next couple of years. Lisa used the word that the buyer was tagged. I was like, huh? She has tagged. I said, what do you mean tagged?
Their friend tagged them.
The friend saw it, tagged the post, and then the friend engaged with Lisa. So being tagged I reckon personally, is going to be a monster thing in the future. I don't think it's replacing good old-fashioned meetings and talking, but I think that if I see something online and I know you want to buy or I know you want to sell, I'll tag you, and that's just a direct hit. But it's like me delivering the newspaper to your front door with the property page open, saying check this one out, check this one out. But you're just doing it within seconds.
But also, just to answer your question, Mark, just on how do we know that was the best price? When the vendor says this is our dream figure and we achieve that, or we get over that and the vendor's over the moon and the purchaser's willing to pay that premium price to take the property from the market before it gets to auction, who are we to argue? What test do we need?
But surely the best price is the price the seller wants.
Yep.
So if I'm a seller and I want 1.3 million, that's what I want.
Correct.
Yeah. If you deliver me 1.3, in my mind
or
as a seller,
or 1.5,
whatever, that's the best price.
Correct.
So it's irrelevant whether or not you could have got more, because at the end of the day, as the seller, I wanted that, Lisa's delivered that, everybody wins.
And not only that, but these guys verified, as do the other however many vendors now, I've lost count, that this was such a stress-free way of selling.
Yeah.
Okay, they didn't have to do anything to their property. There wasn't a huge amount of preparation. There was no money spent. There was no auction campaign. There was no millions of open homes.
So what I would say, this is my view. Okay, this is my view.
I thought we were going to hold it.
No. This is my view. If I was selling my house, I would still, without question, use a portal. I would still, without question, consider using print if I was selling my house.
Yeah.
However, I'll overlay it with this. If someone had said to me 6 or 7 years ago, your daughter, Annie, who you know, is going to fall out of a nightclub, she's going to jump into a stranger's car, i.e. an Uber, and they are going to bring her home, I would have never believed you. Yeah? So the point of the story is, what might feel odd, i.e. not advertising a property in papers or on a portal in 2019. In 2022.
And you're old as well.
Anyway, I might be old, but you and I did this bike ride.
I can tell he was at the front.
He wasn't that old on the bike ride.
Steve was at the front. I verified it. This year, you were at the front.
And Mark,
without even touching the handlebars.
You need to start getting fit, mate. I know. Start getting fit.
I know.
You maybe just train. There's a start. He didn't even train for the last one. Didn't even train.
So that's a wrap, guys.
All
I
right.
reckon that's. I reckon hopefully we've educated people out there to a little bit more about what's happening in properties. It's an absolute privilege to have you here.
No, it's good.
Thank you.
No, it's good, and I think it's a great time to be in real estate as an agent or as a principal, but only if you embrace technology, only if you embrace
100%.
that, because without question, this is a digital era. We're getting more and more people coming into buying and selling who are digitally savvy. And if you want to stay relevant as we move into the next decade, you've got to switch on.
There you go. You heard it from the man.
That's a scoop.
Steve, good luck moving forward as well. I reckon that not even the sky's the limit for you. You're off to a great place, I reckon.
Hopefully.
You are. No doubt. Watch this space, guys, for sure. But thanks so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Cheers.
And thanks to Shangri-La.
Thanks, Shangri-La. You guys are legends.
Yes, absolute legends. Have a great night.
Bye.